Greetings, my name's Philip. I'm here with Santos again, and we're going to talk about Scorpio. Scorpio, which is void of light, void of illusions. It's just pure pitch black. Well, you could say it's a pitch frequency of truth. Scorpio is also where you would find that it can be such a loss, but yet we regain so much from it as well. How do you feel about the energy of this Scorpio frequency, Santos?
I love it. I love them all. I appreciate them all, their virtues, their strengths, and I harvest the best of the signs. Obviously, they have their detrimental side, as everything does, but Scorpio's quite the powerhouse. It's probably known to be one of the most powerful signs, ruled by Iron, Mars, and Pluto. Transformation. It's all about transformation. I think the key there is about the number 8 and the cycles of death and rebirth. Understanding how that's going on around us all the time. Scorpio's always doing that, regardless of whether we're in the season of Scorpio or not. It's one of those signs that has great transformative power, healing power, great athletic and martial skills. It gives people a lot of intense emotional value as well, very stable in the water element, being fixed. Great sign to talk about. Let's get into it.
I love the way it pierces through stuff, cuts through stuff like cheese, but it's like darkness, like a wire through cheese, but almost like they just know, like stone art, because it's this nocturnal quality. And the way I like to see it most is if you look at like the 12-fold wheel with Scorpio in the first place, across the way you have Taurus, which is Venus base, and that's all about our front perception, our perception out here in the world, and also the 12th house, which is Libra. And so both Venetian positions for the Scorpio template are about perception, because the 12th house is about our inner kind of complex, and the 7th is about the projections that we do. So it's our filters. And because they've got this Venetian energy, it's very much of the Christ. It's very much of the crystal clarity. They don't need light because they're nocturnal. And so their skill is the fact that they can see, they know frequency. They don't need the illusion to be able to decipher what's going on.
Right.
I call it clarity, really, because clarity is transparency, it's authenticity, it's almost vulnerability as well. It's the deepest psychology, because it's taking away all of the layers. It also rules the genitoury parts, like our penises and our vaginas. And so these are parts where we are most vulnerable. Often it can actually bring someone to silence if you're, for instance, in a confrontation and then suddenly you got naked. It's like, well, we were arguing, but now you're naked. What's going on? That's threatening. It's kind of threatening, but vulnerable state of being. But also it's obviously very seductive as well if you're going down another frequency with the nature of our most sacred regions. It's what mainly is there for us to procreate, so that we can make another vessel for a spirit to incarnate into. Now that's majestic, but also it can cause so much strife, because we find that we like to possess one another often and grab hold of one another, but sometimes we can feel so disgusted and downright dirty if we was to put our trust into somebody else and then they had discarded us to go with another. And so we'd be like clinging on like the pincers of the scorpion, and then they'd be done with us. We'd be like, well, I'm done with you, sunshine. And so we just let go and we wouldn't be going back. But also mentioning those pincers, I think I got this from you, Santos. I may be wrong, but let me know if this is the case. But in that situation, Scorpio would be known as a Judas, a turncoat, fickle, a cheat, a bastard, if you will. But what it is that actually Judas would kiss their beloved on the cheek. He'd kiss Christ, which is each one of us, on the cheek to show the affection, to show the desire and the compassion. But then it would cheat on this individual. The pincers actually of the scorpion, which is actually a bite. It's a bite to show dominance, to show possession, but also because it's an act of volition to go in on one another and to actually say that this is actually domineered, or this is possessed, or this is taken by me. And so I find as a Venus and Scorpio type, actually, that when I have a partner, they find me more attractive for giving them freedom. Yeah, they like to be known that they are possessed a little bit, but also to roam free, to be able to go and do their own thing. It gains a lot of magnetism, that kind of self-trust and honoring in one another. But still, it's always a fine line, because one also likes to know that they are with another as well. Anyway, that's just my stance on a bit of it. What do you reckon, Santos?
Yeah, for sure. If you're looking along the ecliptic, Scorpio is the sign where people dread that moment in the year where the sun is being betrayed by the bite of Scorpio. And hence Halloween, 1st of November, where spirits are seen and more visible on this plane, because the veil between our physical world and the spiritual world is the thinnest at that particular time. So Scorpio is a very intriguing sign. It has to do with indicating to humanity that autumn is fixed in the water, fixed sign, and winter is coming. So it's like the signal of betrayal. It's like Judas's kiss, like you said. And that betrayal is the fact that it has the power to destroy. It can be a very, very destructive sign. People who are unbalanced, Scorpios, people that are unbalanced, do actually have a very, very destructive nature. And of course, transformative on the other side. So I think they have a lot more trials and endurance to go through than a lot of other signs. It is one of the bitter signs in astrology. All the signs ruled by Mars and Saturn are called bitter signs, and there are 5 of those, including Aries, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Libra. Libra. So Scorpio is one of those. Aries and Scorpio, they do have a tinge of bitterness.
What would you say is bitter is a quality that is actually good for something? The quality of bitterness helps something else dissolve or come into disrepute in a way which is beneficial because it breaks things down.
Absolutely. And alchemists have known since the beginning of time that to transmute iron into gold, the sun needs to be on the ecliptic in the tropical system only, and they can transmute gold from iron in that part of the ecliptic. So that also
is that a bit like having an orgasm in the body style? Because if we're like getting conscious in that zone, you know, and we're ripening the rod, then we're actually going to find that we can be generating some kind of new light, some kind of crystallization of consciousness.
Yeah, for sure. Transformation takes place there. It's also the house of death when it comes to the 8th house. So those things need to be considered. The tropical system is substantiated and supported by the fact that alchemists follow the tropical system to do their transmuting into gold at that time, showing that the tropical system is the dependable system for alchemy and medical astrology, etc. So that's one of the proofs to support the tropical system and giving it validation.
Because of the nature of it being a farmer's calendar, and because it's actually a practical nature for alchemy and use of when to best prescribe a herb and to get it for its, harvest it for its, and utilize it for its best modality.
Yeah, for sure. It's time to the Scorpio time, Scorpio moon and Scorpio sun time is very much a time to regenerate. It's all about generative. In the biology, Scorpio is the generative system. So this is why they tend to have the reputation as being very sexual and concerned mainly with sex. It's not exactly like that. Every sign has sexuality to it. The particular peculiar kind of sexuality that Scorpios have. They're very intense. You know, they do make good lovers. They pay a lot of attention and detail to their lovemaking. They're not. They're very serious about it. They're very deep when it comes to occult science. They're profound. You know, great teachers. They generally penetrate deeper than other people. And it's interesting when you have a conversation with a good Scorpio, you'll find that you better concentrate because they don't really fluff around with superficialities. They get down into the deep parts and they like to penetrate deeply into all matters. So they've got a lot of strengths, not only physically, that great bodies, really good, strong bodies. In war, the Scorpios were always put in the front, you know, because they are the bravest. They do not retract. When it comes to fighting, they have all the skills. They know how to fight. They don't pull back, and they are the best men to have in the front. They're very daunting. They have a scary, you know, look about them when they go into that mode. They can really put you off balance. And so that's why you want those in the front. Arians generally also are in the front as well, but more so Scorpios. They're more intense. Aries also like to fight, so but they don't have the same, I don't think they have the same endurance and stability as a Scorpio when it comes to fighting. But both are very powerful, being ruled by Mars, very heroic. They're good role models. They're good leaders. One of their downsides is addictions, and sexuality does come into that. When you compare Taurus, the opposite sign, you see how they work together. Taurus is about formation. Scorpio is transformation. Taurus is about generation. Scorpio is regeneration. Taurus is anabolic. Scorpio is catabolic. Taurus builds up. Scorpio breaks down. Taurus is nature's appearance. Scorpio is nature's secrets. There you go. Occult secrets. They know how to find what is hidden by their deep penetrating intelligent minds. Taurus is sensuality. Scorpio is sexuality.
I would say also, like we said that Scorpio, like the Judas and the cheat, and that was illuminated, if you will. But like at the same time, they can be very obedient. Like there can be a very well-schooled pupil, and they can really dial it in when necessary. And so they can vary, as you said, the concentration of them is that a factor that it is a bit like, as you say, the palette is of another variety within that medicine wheel. It's the beneath the surface version of the medicine, because where Virgo is the on top of the surface version of the medicine, because Scorpio has got the psychosillin, not easy for me to say, but that's the like psychoactive components that are within the psychological development of our experience within plant medicine and things like this. The mushrooms grow in this Scorpio time. It looks like a helmet on top of a penis as well. It's the same type of thing, because actually when we do go into sex, beyond the physical stimulation and enjoyment of it, it reveals our psychological development. You know, after we've had sex or when we're in it, like, how are you going to do it? Are you doing it right? You got to do it right, or we're not doing it. So there's a lot of pressure, and so there's also like a lot of emotions that can be stimulated through the vulnerability of exposing oneself in different ways. And this can also be when it comes down to things like who's paying for breakfast after the sex the next day. It can lead into other unfoldments, because the shadows cast long, even though because we remember them, we carry them into the next day. When you've been through the experience of baptism, being immersed within an emotional experience such as making love with one another, or even having a dispute with one another. So yeah, I thought that was all very interesting. I liked what you were saying there about the concentration.
Yeah, for sure. Also to note is the healing power they have. They have great healing power. Ophiuchus is one of the deacons, Hercules, so they're very heroic. Hercules was a hero. And I think it's Serpent's Caput is the other deacon, the head of the serpent. So when you think about it, the Kundalini energy in the body is coiled in Scorpio. And so that's why they also have the symbol of the snake intertwining around the caduceus. It really is the basis of the caduceus and the spinal column and the beginning of our journey of raising the chrism. So Scorpio is very, very important. It's very significant in our ascension process. When you have a healthy Scorpio, you also have a healthy sexual body. The sexual body is one of the bodies which we occupy, including emotional, mental, and physical. So it does stand out. It is very, very prominent sign and important to understand. It's very, very important to understand Scorpio. We all have this destructive and transformative nature. So if we can find the balance there, we can get the best out of it. The best of Scorpio is, I find, is they are very much like the eagle. You know, they have penetrating sight and wisdom and depth of penetration. So they have that great ability to be deep and meaningful, and they don't sort of tolerate flippant behavior, and they get right down to business. They're very good for business, great business people, and they're very good to have as your right-hand man. If you've got a friend you want to protect you, you know, and you feel protection and security, Scorpio's going to be the best one to have as a right-hand man. At the moment, my right-hand man, Daniel, he's a Scorpio, and he's got my back, and they make good friends. I find them to be my best friends, including Aquarians, for their humanitarian steadiness. They are also a fixed sign, but Scorpio will, you know, rise to the challenge all the time and never shrink back. So they're very, very gifted.
Do you think
Sorry?
do you feel that this probably is an overall arcing question for all of the signs, but in general, do you feel like if someone's got a predominance of planets in a sign, it doesn't even have to be their ascendant, their sun, or their moon, but obviously then they can subscribe to an archetype and say, well, that's my archetype, you know, because I very much relate with Scorpio a lot, because but I've only got 2 planets there, but it's my Pluto and my ruling planet Venus, but Venus rules my ascendant, my moon, and my south node, so it's quite a lot that being in that Scorpio zone, really.
Gotcha.
Did you think that can relate to things if someone's deciphering their caricature or their experience of their soul?
Yeah, for sure. Yep. So Firmicus Maternus, 2,000 years ago, thereabouts, described people who have the rising sign as Scorpio. And when you go to the rising sign, you really hone in on their attributes much, much more. It's more sort of it's a more detailed and fine-tuned description. And this is what he says. Those who have ascendant in Scorpio are clever, bad-tempered, and active in early youth. They encounter many kinds of misfortune in life, but afterwards, if Jupiter is in aspect in any way, they will attain fortune, power, and happiness. They will be famous and protected by the gods, and they will travel to another region or state. They will be elevated in mind, sharp-witted, and have fondness for eloquence. Very eloquent teachers. Variety will always be pleasing to them. Because of friends, they will always be meeting troubles or dangers. And after much grief from loss of children, they will again be gladdened by offspring. So that's the ascendant, right? And that pretty much also describes the sun, because the sun is more general. It generally describes the whole way that you work astrologically, whereas that ascendant, you know, that
there's something you said at the end there of that little motto, that little the passage. It said like those who suffer loss or through the Scorpio, because it's obviously rules bereavement, and if it's their child, if they grieve a lot, then they'll often have children again. Because this is a mythological thing, which we see a lot, and certainly I've experienced it. My mother had lost a son, and then she grieved it, and then had me. They grieved my brother, who I never met because he was born before me, and then she had me. Bless her soul. And but I know this has happened to many, many, many people.
Nice. Speaking of Scorpios and my right-hand man, in comes my right-hand man, Daniel, 7th of November, Scorpio.
How we doing?
I'm doing good. How you doing, Daniel?
Best.
Pleased to hear it.
So, yeah, so you can actually, if you look at Daniel's face, you see the Scorpio beak of the hawk, you know, the bird. You can see that beak there. You can see the iron. They've got great physique, as I said, for fighting.
Ready.
To have
That's what I like.
Yep.
Ready, but also gentle at the same time, subtle, like,
yep,
you know, placid, able to chill. Yeah.
Yep, and the women the women generally like these guys. You know, they
generally. Sometimes you don't get so lucky.
Just bought me a nice spinach green smoothie. There you go. My right-hand man.
Yep.
That's what you want.
Right. You take your card, right?
Yep. All right, just one tick. I'll organise something.
You don't like ice, right? So I made it
Yeah.
just cold.
Thanks, man.
Not with ice.
Thank you.
Nice meeting you, buddy.
Nice meeting you, Daniel. Have a great day.
All right. Tune out.
So that was a really weird synchronicity. I'm going to tell you all of them. Firstly, my brother who drowned, his name's Daniel. It's my flipping middle name. Secondly, I went for a meal last night I went for lunch yesterday with a 12th house, Venus and Mercury and Uranus in Scorpio. And everything that we had on our table was green. And so they are a good influence on eating and health. In fact, they're instructors, and they'll help you be in command with your own alignment. And if you fall out of alignment, then they'll fall out of alignment with you. And also, likewise for anything really, they're a cruel mistress in the way they teach you. Like darkness, if the light has gone, it's a cruel mistress. You've got to find ways to occupy yourself within that resonance of what is a pitch black atonement to that frequency of being nocturnal, of having the light taken. It's the truth of things. It really is the truth of things at its core. It's not always pretty, but the naked truth is honest.
Yeah. And when it comes,
if you'll be mugging yourself off, really, for want of a better term. If you don't obey what the Scorpio reveals, if you don't obey what the night and the truth of what darkness and the shadow says, what the tale is, the true tale of the state of the tape is really our story. And so if you ignore that, if you're ignorant to that, then you're being detriment to self. Because Mars is self, and Mars rules Scorpio, and the true hero of the self is actually the dark night of the soul.
yeah, it is a sign associated with darkness and death. So, but that darkness is the darkness that we all must face, the darkness that we all carry within us, and transmute. So we can use that energy very, very productively,
Yeah, you could say it's the fertile bit, because Mars is the root chakra. We're talking about the root of it all, is the fact that we are born from darkness. And actually, when we go to the root, or as my granddad used to do, he'd go down to the back and the bottom of the garden to the compost heap. And that's where all his little bits from the kitchen was rot. And I'm pleased that I'm telling this version of the story, because this version's actually much more palatable for the light of day. But actually, all of the little bits would rot, and then you could scatter them all around the garden and have a very beautiful selection of flowers, because this composite nature of darkness is fertile as fuck, as you say. And so it actually is where all things blooms from, because opposite is where we are now, isn't it, Santos? It's blooming spring. And so this is where all the great beautiful things that are Venetian and beautiful and Taurian grow, but they come from the root chakra, they come from the sexuality, they come from the dark night of truth, they come from the shadow of the underworld.
Yeah, for sure. Great attributes. The eagle side of Scorpio is what I like. In fact, the band, the Eagles, all three of their singers belong to the sign Scorpio. So we've got Glenn Frey, you've got Schmidt, and you've got Joe Walsh. They're all Scorpios. So when I think of the cool side, the free, easy flowing, fluid Scorpios, I always think of the Eagles. Whenever I listen to the Eagles, the sign Scorpio just jumps out. You know, it's my my model for sensing that Scorpio high energy, the high end of the Scorpio energy, you know, and not so much the dark side, which can be prominent. When they're cool, they are just super cool, you know, like the coolest people to be with. Very enjoyable, very pleasant to be with them. You tend to enjoy being alive. You know, they remind you of life, because death is that frequency that is generated from their sign, but rebirth, that freshness of rebirth, and, you know, flying high above the mountains like an eagle and having oversight, you know, and having bigger perspective than other people. So great strengths, sign of power, transformation, healing, and strength. Healing is one of the things that stand out for me, because I believe their strength is emotional healing. And emotions are what drive us. So they are gifted to a certain degree, depending on how much, you know, they apply themselves, depending on how well aspected their Scorpio energy is, and many other things, because there's always different, you know, extenuating things that can condition that sign. That everything is not all equal, you know, not all Arians are the same. And in fact, one thing to note is there is 144 different kinds of every sign, because when you mix the moon and the rising sign, well, that's 12 times 12. So every Scorpio can have one of 12 moons and one of 12 rising signs. So that's a blend. There's actually 144 of those. So, you know, there's many other things that can condition that sun sign, as with all the signs. Yeah, that's like a car, for instance. They might release a model, and there'll be a luxury model, there'll be the standard model, there'll be the family model. Some will have air conditioning, others won't. They're not all the same. Not everybody gets the very same thing. And even if they do get the very same thing, each individual car will have its own little, you know, idiosyncrasies and, you know, certain characteristics. That everything is unique and different, although they appear to be similar or the same. So that needs to be taken into consideration too. I'd love to do a show about that, how there are actually 144 different kinds of every sign, you know?
Yeah, I think that's a good thing to do. I always like into like these placements where we've got the conductors, the lords of the signs, and so how they are the distributors for these energies, a bit like a rose on the watering can. So they are filtering things through. Like we had this Aries cycle that we were in, and yet Mars rules Aries, and it was in Gemini. And so it's like sprinkling it out through all of the bridges that we're asserting and connecting, all of the different planets that were in Aries at that point. So it's interesting how it's the same way with our chart reading, that when we're looking at people's ascending signs and what rules their ascending signs and where they are. And it's all very interesting. I love it. So I would currently, I've got a progressed ascendant in Scorpio conjunct Pluto. What's that about, Santos? That's pretty deep, isn't it? Also,
yeah, go on.
Mars rules Scorpio. I've got Mars in Aries in this progressed chart, conjunct Rahu in the 6th house. I think I'm going to be, obviously I'm an occultist, I'm a witch doctor, but maybe I'm going to start taking more of an interest in health because of needs that's sake. Because we've all got to take an interest in our body, because it's our body that allows our spirits to come and reside and congregate and create. Without our body, we wouldn't have a spaceship craft at all, really. The astrology is the handbook for the body, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yep. Astrology is the map, electromagnetic map of your constitution. So wherever Scorpio is, in whatever cusp it is, that's where you are doing a lot of deep transformative growth. So once you find that cusp, then you know where you are applying that powerful energy in your chart.
Yeah, for me, I've been doing this like second house, not really knowing the value of oneself. And obviously the cusp is actually in the first house if you want to do cusps. And so it's the identity of my value, and the depth of it. Where did I come from? Where did I go? I'll make sure of it once I know. So basically that's really that's really this articulation of self, how to speak it. It's about me confirming it for myself. You're darn right I'm valuable. Look how much wisdom I've got to share. And so I'm always learning too, because Scorpio will be learning and listening and obedient to honing one's craft, to sharpening one's tool, and to becoming more of oneself in the practice too. It's all about development,
Yep.
isn't it? Rich is the quality of that soil. Rich of the rocks, because it's the firmament, isn't it? It's the firmamentation of this continual going in and going out and coming in and going out and coming in.
Yes, it's very hormonal sign. It's all about the hormones as well. And hormone means Horus and moon, sun and moon, and harmony. It's about harmony. So it's interesting how you pointed out that you have a friend called Dan, who's also a Scorpio. You would be surprised how many Dans are Scorpios. Pretty much 90% of the Daniels that I know belong to the sign of Scorpio. Again, showing that our parents don't choose our names, neither do our brothers and sisters, as we claim. You know, we like to think that we're part of that. Well, we are part of it, but eventually it's this energy of that sign which inspires and influences the individual to actually grant a name which is suited to the frequency of that sign. And Daniel is in the Hebrew system, the tribe of Dan has often been attributed to Scorpio. And in the 12 apostles, it's Judas, the betrayer, because Judas, when a Scorpio bites, it leaves a mark on the flesh, which looks like a lipstick kiss mark. And so, and because they are a backbiter, they betray from the back. So that's what the Scorpio does. So that's why Judas gets to be always known as Scorpio. And when you look in the sky, you can see the letter J. Scorpio makes the letter J, and that's Judas or Jehovah. So it's one of the fixed signs, and it's also part of the image of God that Ezekiel and Revelation paint when they say that God, Ezekiel says, I saw God, and he had 4 faces, and one face was the face of a man, Aquarius, one of an eagle, Scorpio, one of a lion, Leo, and one of a bull, Taurus. So that's the fixed signs which make this cross. The cardinal signs make the dynamic, the static cross, whereas the fixed signs make the dynamic cross.
Why is it dynamic? Why is the fixed one dynamic, do you think? Because it's I'm going to answer the question, see if I'm right, and then you tell me. I don't know why, that's my style. Is it because that it wants change? I mean, it wants sustainability, but because it wants sustainability for so long, it clings on for so long that when it changes, by gosh, it's like a rabbit out of a hat. It's like a jack in a box. It's just so fantastical change. It's a massive change. It's a change from the root. It's as you say, is that why it's so dynamic? Because it wants to sustain, but when it changes to something else. that's going to last for a long time.
Yeah, I would say so, because following the fixed signs are the mutable signs, signs of change. So they give that fixability and potential. It's like the potential, and that creates dynamic energy, moving, flowing energy. So
What I liken about the Taurus archetype is because it's like stirring a batter, like making a cake or making something like that, you know, porridge, oats. If you're stirring anything, what you're doing is you're dragging it in like this, and you're dragging it in from the center, from the parameter, like making a dough. You're dragging it in from the outside in, because it's kneading. It's called kneading, and when you give yourself what you need, you're actually dragging it up. It's self-love. But with the Scorpio, it's obviously you've got to go after what you need in a certain sense. It's the hunter predator in a sense, because in the nighttime you've got to go after the person who turns you on, who you're attracted to. You've got to let them know. If you miss it, then you've missed your chance to, you know, copulate, to procreate with what's fertile for you. And that's something which will be dynamic in your experience if you go without with what you want to couple with. But it's the fixed signs that is the world card, isn't it, as well? So that's really interesting, because the world card is a great amount of change. Here it is. I've been looking for it, and you said it yourself. It's the bull and the lion and the eagle and the man, or the air. It's blowing air, that bloke, that woman. It's Aquarius. It's intelligence. It's the air, the consciousness. And so these are the fixed signs. It's the world card, and it's got the aurora borealis, or the nodal axis around it as well. And she's also got... Go on.
That's really interesting, man. You've got the 4 fixed signs there. Can you pull out the what's the other one that's got the wheel in it?
That's the Wheel of Fortune here, and that is also it's also got the same fixed signs on it. I looked at it, but it wasn't as clear, so I'm more familiar with the world. But if you look closely at the bottom, it's got them as well. It's got the bull, and it's got the lion, and it's got the human, which is doing air, reading a book, showing its intelligence, and it's got the eagle.
Hey, are they in the same positions? Can you put them both together? I want to see what.
There we go. They.
Oh my.
They're the 4 elements, aren't they? Because they're the 4 corners of the earth.
They are in the same position. Eagle top right, Aquarius top left, Taurus bottom left, and Lion bottom right. And notice the lion's got wings like the Sphinx.
So these I have to talk for a moment just so that they come up on the screen while you're narrating them. But it's funny because basically this is the Wheel of Fortune and the world. They are of the same quality. Jupiterian by nature, the world. They're expansive, and yet they're also forevermore the center of our creation. They are the pit of it all. And so this is our realm, and it's where we come, because it is of fortune, for our ability to nurture our underworld, the underbelly, as well as the overall arc of our story. It's actually that we know the inner so that we can create the outer and dance between the two. And it's these different pillars, these 4 elemental structures, that allow us to sustain and know ourselves within some kind of security. Gives us a bit of dynamic flair, if you will. Sometimes you don't want to express that dynamic out externally, but those folks, I bet they're deep as fuck internally.
Yeah. Hey, pull up that.
You know, just ironically, the next of the pile of cards, just that was next up. Well, of course. There you go.
Hey, can you pull up that wheel again? The Wheel of Life.
Yeah. These 2. Here you go.
Now you look at the Wheel of Life. You notice that the Yod, it has the Hebrew letters Yod, He, Va, He. And the Yod, which is like a J, is right there aligned with the eagle of Scorpio. And then you've got and then you've got the hare pointing up to Aquarius. Then you've got the Vav, which is Taurus. And when you look at Taurus, there's a V in the constellation Taurus. So there's the Vav. And then you've got another hare for Leo. And when you look at those 4 fixed signs, you will actually see Yod He Va He in the sky in the ecliptic. It's absolutely incredible.
That is amazing.
The name Jehovah is spelled out on the ecliptic, and the J of Judas Scorpio, that's a Yod.
That is insane. Just like, so this is like the actual glyphs, which I've never understood on the card. I didn't know that kind of stuff. These on just the what language is that?
Hebrew.
And
yes.
So this is like there's full books written in Hebrew and stuff. This isn't like what they just put on runes. It's not Hebrew that I have on a rune. That's a different thing, isn't it?
Well, they are similar. You know, the Hebrews have 22 letters, whereas the runes are 26, like the English alphabet. And when you compare the runes and the English alphabet, you'll see that there's only 2 letters between the 2 alphabets which are different. All the rest look like each other. I've done 2 videos on the runes. I really strongly recommend anyone who's interested in the ancient alphabets like the runes to please have a look in my channel on the runes. It's absolutely incredible how similar our English language is to both Hebrew and the Nordic runes. It's astonishing.
So do you think that these things, they relate back down to our core key tones of our throat chakra, which is actually Taurus? And so it's actually what we are able to emit through the different tones of our mouth, where we direct our tongue. But in English, it was actually after the vowel shift that it was channeled by John Dee, and they did a vowel shift. That was about 400 or 500 years ago, and they changed the tonology of the vowels and the glyphs that we use for the vowels in English compared to what they were. And so this was confusing for us. And also they changed the directions. The flipping directions changed. They changed them, which was maybe more to do with what we were looking at and just tapping into and discussing here, with the fixed signs being the elemental directions, and yet they've changed them to cardinal directions, because east used to be north, or up, if you will. Up was east, and north was the beginning was considered to east, because we would say, where does the beginning? Well, where the sun rises. So we all consider north to be the most potent. Oh, let's go north. But actually, it was all about where the sun was rising. And so obviously this was carried down in some traditions, certainly not in the West. And so we lost our ways due to the map being completely shifted by the same guy, black magic, if you will, from the Elizabethan era, which is still being passed on and swept on today, because that was in the middle point of when we had our conjunction in Capricorn of Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter, which we had last year. Last time we would have had that was 735 years ago in 1284. So the middle point of when that was going on was when this took place, when Elizabeth I was sat on the throne, and she got John Dee to channel this information using his crystal ball, which he would use to scry this information and channel this different Gaelic, this different language where he flips the vowels. Is this correct, Santos? And yep. And also, just to put another coin and pronunciation on top of it, J.K. Rowling, the warlock who wrote Harry Potter, now owns that crystal ball that John Dee owned. So that's bringing it forward.
Wow. Wow. Incredible.
That is incredible, because this is what we just see here in this tarot card, and this is actually where we knew our directions. But the main direction is actually when you're this one, and you know yourself internally, because you're just the circle, which is the Fool card. It doesn't matter what direction you're headed, because you've got yourself. And that's really the main thing. But when it comes down to knowing the earth realm, knowing the matrix, to know these directions really do tell you a lot more than the ones that we're taught about with the practicalities of the map and the geography that we have of the modern day, which is a load of hoopla.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
That was exciting. Didn't expect that coming, but this is the kind of thing that comes out when you're exploring darkness, isn't it?
Yep, absolutely. Great sign for facing the darkness and
Fear.
penetrating the darkness and not being afraid of the darkness. It's just one of the two aspects of light and darkness. And Scorpio is just that sign that really acquaints you with your darker side. And sometimes people think that that has to do with sexuality. Well, it can have, depends on the individual, because when it comes to sexuality, of course, because it's so pleasing, sometimes people go down tangents that their morals wouldn't normally allow them to. But Scorpios, have no fear or dread when it comes to that. I think they're more comfortable with that, and they understand this a lot more. That's why I think they make the best healers by far. That psychic and emotional steadfastness that they possess.
With this very martial energy of the root, I always find that it comes with a lot of rage as well. Like rage is another thing that can't come through. But when you've got a lot of love to go with rage, a lot of compassion to go with your rage, then you can really find that you've got the courage to do anything. And this is this ultimate warrior. Even to stand in the face of someone who you absolutely detest, and you want to hit them or something. You want to retaliate. You want to lash out. You want to show them what for. But actually, you've got so much love, so much courage that you don't do that. And you're just like, I stand before you, and you know me by my courage not to hurt you. Now that's some Scorpio energy.
Courage for sure. Courage on steroids. And bravery, and not bravado, but real bravery. I've seen Scorpio people fight, and they are daunting. They. Have you seen chickens fight? I just watched a video of a chicken fighting a dog for about 3 minutes, and this chicken, the dog could have just bit its head off, but this chicken, it did not shrink back. The dog was double its size and it kept attacking it, and it was fierce. And it doesn't care whether it's going to die. It's just going to fight and win the fight. So, yeah, you'll see that through all the Scorpios. You'll see that chicken, that bird, that eagle, the way they fight fiercely and the way they overcome their prey, definitely warlike, very martial. But Pluto's the higher octave of Mars, and Pluto actually also rules Scorpio. And if you look at the symbol of Pluto, it looks like a phoenix. So I always think of the phoenix as well. The Sphinx, the phoenix. I see that transformational energy through their core. It's undeniable. Scorpio, the Scorpio archetype.
The accomplice. Someone will stand by you, who, when you're going through your shit, when you're going through hell, someone will stand by you and keep you company and stand by your side. And that kind of obedience, that kind of love, there's nothing that will compare to that. dedication.
Agreed. Yeah, loyalty, bravery, heroship. These are all strengths of Scorpio, and anyone can conjure that up in their own self. You know, if you want those things, you bring Scorpio out, you know, and you bring it to the fore. You can bring any one of the 12 signs at any moment. You can bring that frequency out if you know how to manage your body and you are in control of your mind. You can just make it happen.
There's a great story about death and the character, and he's actually a star. He's the starring role of this story, Death, and it's the story of going across the river Styx to hell and back. And so this is the story of the ferryman, because Death is actually the person who rows the boat across from the normal lands, if you will, back to the hell underworld and back. And so you only have the company of Death that comes to collect you and to take you back. And really, it's quite a reflexive time where you get to just be with yourself. And this is a great opportunity, because Mars is self in Aries, to reflect on our own inner darkness and our own ability to support ourselves, like be the backdrop of our own story, to really come into communion with who we are and see that actually it's not anything scary about being on our own. There's nothing really that scary about the darkness. In fact, we can chauffeur ourselves anywhere in this life, whether it's to the most exciting thing that we've never done before, which is intimidating, or whether it's to the dentist. Whatever it might be, we can really cope because we've got ourselves, and that's the best relationship and the best connection which we can have with anybody when we get to the root of it all.
Absolutely. And Scorpio is the sign that introduces you to yourself. Scorpio is the beginning of the river Styx. You hit it on the head. It's where you get on the boat and pay the ferryman, and then you come out at Pisces. So Pisces is also water. So that those waters, those 5 months, the signs from Scorpio to Pisces, those are the 5 dreaded months of winter. Whereas Aries to Libra, those are the 7 happy, the positive 7 and the negative 5. Just like the keys on your piano, you've got 7 white and 7 dark. Well, the 5 dark, which make 12. So those 5 dark ones, Scorpio's the beginning of that. In fact, in theology, Noah's, the rain and staying in the ark lasted 5 months. And the 1st of November is called All Saints' Day, because that's when supposedly all the people were destroyed by the flood. And then at the end of Pisces, when the sun goes into Aries, that's Mount Ararat, where the ark lands on Nisan 14th on the top of Mount Ararat, which means Aries. And so those are considered to be the 5 evil months of winter, you see. So Scorpio is the door opening, the number 8. You shut one door, you open another into the winter, to face the darkness of the winter, to go within, to get to know yourself, to introvert and come out with some goods. When the ark then lands in springtime in Aries on Mount Ararat, you open the doors and you have a spring clean. And that's Aries. It always happens there in the months of March and April, the spring clean. And that's because you've cleansed yourself. You've gone through that meditative period from Scorpio to Pisces, those evil 5 months, so-called evil, and come out on top of the mountain. Victor.
It's brilliant. I love that so much, because especially these things like the keyboard. So these 5 black notes on the keyboard and the 7 white notes on the keyboard. You could say that those black notes, they're minor notes. They're called minor notes, but they're actually they're more powerful in a sense. They're the key tones that actually can build the structure of the song. And the other notes are more inferior, although they dominate because they're splattered all over the song much more than the backbone of the black notes. The minor notes are the backbone. They're the more emotional key tones. You can bring someone to tremble in tears with a few minor notes. You can tell someone the story with the minor notes, because really that's what the white inferior notes, they just flesh out that story. You know, they're just the sprinkles on the cake. They're a bit like the personal planets and the external, the interpersonal planets, the transpersonal planets in astrology. Isn't that cool?
It is. It's wonderful. There's always wonders to explore in astrology, and this is only like a superficial taste of what astrology, the depth of wisdom and understanding that astrology can give to the individual. We could go way, way, way deeper. There's so many things to talk about, but
I literally just rolled out of bed 20 minutes before we recorded Santos, and we just picked it up like just like this. It's great. I love the knowledge, because it's a language, isn't it? Like astrology and metaphysics, and the more that you immerse yourself in it, the more it broadens our scope. I didn't know any of the directions that we were headed. Likewise with you, we didn't have any. We just said we're going to talk about Scorpio, and then because of the power of the language that we know and we're able to share, it's just so rich for us to tap into.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Thank you so much for your time again today. I really enjoyed this. Absolutely. And everybody for watching, you're deeply and dearly appreciated. If you're watching on my channel, Unifying Perspectives, then make sure you have checked out Santos on Mr. Astrotheology, and all of his great works on his website is University School of Wisdom. What's it called, Santos?
Universaltruthschool.com.
Universaltruthschool.com. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Philip.
Have a fantastic day. Thank you, Santos.
You too, brother. Take care, man.
Bye-bye.